What's up, guys? Not a good night last night, 2-3, although the Knicks got there. They were winning a lot of the game, but it looked like it was going to be pretty dicey. But once it got down to the end and they had the lead, you're like, well, they're probably going to get some intentional foul shots here and wind up covering, and that was the case there. So that saved the night from being worse, at least. The hockey game, I think, was closer than the final score looked. If you look at the statistics of that game, I think it was the right play to play the underdog in that one, the Washington Capitals. It did not get there. And they were losing 5-1 in the third period and wound up losing 5-3. But statistically, the game was closer than the score looked. It was some bad goaltending on their part and just unfortunate. Oklahoma in college basketball is really the one that I was way off on. That one was bad. That one was not close. Once I saw like how the market panned out on that one, I was like, this is not looking very good, even though I did like it from a situational standpoint, but that didn't get there. UCF was an easy win. That was an easy win by margin there for them against a not very good West Virginia team at all. And then the other game, Georgia Tech, that was kind of irritating. Georgia Tech definitely could have gotten within that number and just did not quite get there. So I still think that one was the right side too. I think Oklahoma was really the one that was way off. The other one's not really. Unfortunate. We moved to today, and I'm being pretty selective. I don't know if it's just because sometimes I get even more selective after a day that wasn't that great, or if it's just that I just am being selective just because of the way the card looks here. But it's just, I don't like anything that I'm seeing here, man. In the NHL, I'm just completely passing on the NHL. I would say that I don't love the spot for my Bruins, which is kind of the biggest game of the night, too. Every other game has a big spread besides the Toronto game, pretty much. But Bruins down from minus 135 to minus 133. They have 98% of the cash, 89% of the tickets. So they're public, but it looks like the line's moving against them. It's kind of a short money line on them, so it almost looks too easy to take the Bruins. They're coming off beating the Jets. They've won 5 games in a row, which also included beating the Avalanche in there. And unfortunately beating Montreal sandwiched in between the two in a game where I went against the Bruins, and they still won pretty easily. They do have a game tomorrow against Ottawa, but I don't think they're going to be looking ahead to that. So I do think they're still going to be focused on Carolina, even though they're coming off a really nice-looking win over Winnipeg, who's one of the top teams in the Western Conference. And Carolina's coming off an ugly loss to the Wild, where maybe they were looking ahead to this game a little bit, and they've had 2 days off, so Carolina's in the better spot rest-wise and kind of situationally. They earn a spot where they can they're kind of in a bounce-back spot, and the Bruins, I don't know if they're really going to be in a letdown spot, though, and it's one of the better Eastern Conference teams coming into their house, so I don't know. So that's why it's tough on that one. And then Toronto, Winnipeg, that one, they're kind of conflicting situational angles looking at that one as well. Toronto's up from minus 125 to minus 128 as the home favorite. Winnipeg's 70% of the tickets and 63% of the cash. So it does look like the market read is on Toronto. Toronto up on the money line a little bit in the public on Winnipeg, but less of the cash on Winnipeg than the tickets. Winnipeg certainly the team with the better record here. They're playing a third straight road game. They lost to the Bruins, as I mentioned in the previous one, but not really a close game, losing 4-1. I guess it was 2-1 going into the third period, so I guess it was closer than the final score indicated. And Winnipeg put up kind of a pretty physical. Actually, yeah, it was closer than the final score looked. Winnipeg put up a pretty physical battle there. Bruins got a shorthanded goal, and then the last goal was an empty netter, so it was actually closer than it looked there. So, yeah, kind of a tough game for Winnipeg to be coming off of, but Toronto also in a bad spot, returning from a 4-game road trip that took them out to the Pacific Northwest, even though they have 2 days off, and it is Winnipeg coming in, so they may be focused on Winnipeg. So even though Toronto's in the return home spot, it actually might be a somewhat better scenario for Toronto than for Winnipeg coming off the battle against Boston. So maybe I would slightly lean to Toronto there, but not getting involved. And the market does look like it's on that side. Over in the NBA, again, there are numerous games with big spreads, and I just don't like what I'm seeing here. The closest that I would be to a play in the NBA would probably be to go against the Portland Trailblazers. Rockets are up from 9.5 to 10. It looks like it's going through the 10. I think there were still some 9.5s out there, but it looks like it's going through the 10. They got 96% of the cash and 88% of the tickets. So I would be getting on that quickly, I guess, if you do like Houston. Houston is public. The one thing that kind of keeps me off of it is that Houston is coming off an overtime game against Utah and then playing Boston to within 9. But, I mean, they were losing the whole game to Boston, so I don't know if it was really necessarily a close game, but still, it's a game you get up for against Boston. They've had 2 days off, and they don't have anything up next, though, so maybe they do want to go 2-1 on this homestand here, and they know it's a winnable game against Portland for sure. So maybe they'll actually be focused on Portland just because they don't have anything else coming up next. I do lean to the Houston side, but it's more so because Portland, I just don't know what they're going to have left after last night. They're playing a third game in 4 nights, all in different cities, all on the road. They got blown out by the Lakers, but then last night they played at Oklahoma City, and they played real tough. They had a battle with them. They were winning the game for much of it in the third quarter, like in the later portions of it, and then still were close to winning this game. They're still winning in the final minute of the game as well, and they wound up losing in the end. That's a tough game to come off of, man, for the Portland Trailblazers there. So the lean in that one would definitely be to the Houston side in that one. And then I also I don't love the San Antonio Spurs side of things either. They're returning home from a 5-game road trip, and they finished losing to the Philadelphia 76ers by 10. Now, the game wasn't really that close, but they're coming home, and it is true maybe they'll be focused because it is Oklahoma City coming into their house, but it is a return home spot, which isn't necessarily good, and Oklahoma City is on a back-to-back, so I don't like that aspect of it for Oklahoma City either. But Oklahoma City is coming off that game they played last night. They had 2 days off before last night's game, which was a return home from a road trip. Even if it was with 2 days off, they had just beaten Minnesota. They were returning home from a road trip, so it wasn't a very good spot for Oklahoma City. I didn't want to get involved in it because Oklahoma City's on my do not fade list, really, because they cover so often, even if they're in bad spots. That spot was kind of weird because it was just that 1-game homestand, which meant you knew they were going to have to get their home stuff done before going back out on the road. So they aren't a back-to-back now, but last night's game might give them a scare because they really didn't play well against Portland as a huge favorite, almost losing that game. So that might scare them back into focus here. So I actually would lean to the Oklahoma City side in this one, and they're actually down from 8-7 as a road favorite. I don't love laying road favorites. Those Spurs, 64% of the tickets, 54% of the cash. So it does look like the market, cash discrepancy. Somehow the Spurs with the public action right now, I don't know if I buy that, but it does look like the market is indicating on the Thunder side in that one. But I'm not going to get involved in any of this, really. I think Houston would be the strongest play in the NBA if you're going to play something, just because I don't know what the Trailblazers are going to have left in the tank after that, after what they did last night. So it is a bad spot for Portland. Would consider laying it with Houston. I almost did it. Maybe I'm being too selective here, but we'll see. Going over to college basketball, which is where my only play is, and one of the other plays that I almost made would be to lean to the DePaul side. And a lot of this is because they just fired their coach. So they had a coach who'd been there for, I think, 3 years now, and he just wasn't getting the job done. But I don't know if the players disliked him or anything, or if they like the new, they have an interim coach, so they're going to be looking for a new coach for next year. But are they going to play well for this interim coach for the rest of the year? I don't know. Usually when a team gets rid of their coach, if the players aren't really buying into his system and they don't like him, usually that is a spark for the team, so they usually play better. So I do lean to the DePaul side for that reason, because I think they might have that fired coach spark there coming into this game. They really need to do something, and they have a nice ranked team in Marquette coming into their house, so it's a nice opportunity to look good against a good team. So maybe that'll happen. They looked bad again in their previous game against Butler, which then sparked the firing. They have the ranked team coming into their house, so maybe they're going to want to do something. And Marquette is not really in a spot where they'll really be focused, I wouldn't think. They're coming off a close battle, winning at St. John's. It was actually at Madison Square Garden. St. John's plays a lot of their home games at MSG there. And this is their second straight road game now. They might just overlook DePaul after a close battle that went to the wire against St. John's. And then up next, Marquette has Seton Hall, who beat Seton Hall in their house. So That might be a little revenge. They might have a little road reversal revenge on their mind coming up against Seton Hall, and then they do have Villanova up after that too. So it is a sandwich spot for Marquette. I'm not sure I want to get involved in a game that has an 18-point spread. KenPom, I think, has it around 17. I do lean to the DePaul side, though, because it is a sandwich for Marquette, and DePaul might be sparked a little bit from the fired coach scenario. The one play that I'm actually on is also in the Big East. I'm taking Providence, plus 4.5, maybe is what I got. Plus 4.5. Those numbers are still out there. You can still find either one of those numbers, even though on the board here it looks like it's at 4 right now, up from 3.5 to 4 on Seton Hall. So I don't know what's causing the line to move up on Seton Hall, really. KenPom actually has Providence as the better team, but they have lost Bryce Hopkins, but he's been out for a while. Providence not playing well, man. They lost 4 games in a row and then finally won against DePaul, but it is DePaul. But I do like that because I think the win against DePaul is going to be like a momentum starter, although now they've had a week off to prepare for this game as well. But the win against DePaul might help them carry some momentum. I don't know if the week off is going to hurt that momentum at all, but I like the fact that they finally got that win to break that losing streak, to kind of put that negative momentum aside. And of course, on that losing streak, those losses are really it's a gauntlet in the Big East, and all those were pretty good teams against Seton Hall, at Creighton, at St. John's, and then at home against Xavier is probably the worst looking one, losing by 20. That's not great. That's kind of inexcusable, but they were coming out of like a few big games, so I don't know. Providence, like I said, since they've been without Bryce Hopkins, is that his name? I think I called him Tompkins at one point. Hopkins. They have not been playing as well. It's unfortunate, that injury there. He's one of their best players. He's the Kentucky transfer. He's been out, but I do like them to be focused here. I think that DePaul win will at least kind of break that like losing momentum that they had. Like I said, it'll kind of help them get back in that mindset. Like, we can actually win a game, even though it was against DePaul. Nobody's going to want Providence here because of the way that they've looked. KenPom, like I said, still has them as the better team. He has Seton Hall winning this game by 3, but how much of that is factoring into the fact that Hopkins was playing earlier in the season for Providence? I don't know, because they've had several games without him now too. So I don't know how much that's factoring into KenPom having Providence ranked higher than Seton Hall, but I do like this. And Seton Hall, man, this is a bad spot for Seton Hall. And people are going to look at the common opponents too and be like, well, wait a minute. Providence just lost they already lost to Seton Hall at home, but I think that's going to help Providence want that like road reversal revenge angle, because Seton Hall came into their house and beat them. So they're going to have a bit of quick revenge on their mind, because that was back on January 3rd. So they know Seton Hall came into their house and beat them. So Providence might want to they might want to be able to exact some revenge there against Seton Hall after that. It's a stronger angle when you have the conference teams meeting up for the second time, and the road team won the first game. The team that's then on the road, especially if they're an underdog in the next game, tends to be a pretty good play. So Providence has that going for them. Providence lost, like I said, to Creighton, St. John's, and Xavier. Seton Hall also lost to Xavier, but they beat St. John's, and they did lose to Creighton in their last game, but that was a triple overtime game. Seton Hall went all out, man. And this is what Seton Hall's coming off of, a triple overtime game where there were multiple chances to win that game. Like, it looked like they had the game put away multiple times in regulation, and I think in the first overtime at the very least. Seton Hall looked like they were going to be able to pull it off at home against Creighton. Now they're coming off that, a triple overtime game, and they're not traveling, but having to sit around at home off of that might be difficult, man. And unlike Providence, who won in their last game, this might break some of the momentum that Seton Hall had, because they had 5 straight wins prior to that, and they'd won 8 of 9 prior to that. So I don't know. I don't think it's a good spot for them coming off of the big Creighton game. They're playing a team they've already beaten on the road in Providence, and they have Marquette up next on Saturday in 3 days. So they might be looking ahead to that big game against Marquette, although they beat Marquette the first time they played them. It's still a big game against Marquette. They might not fully focus on Providence here, man. Providence might be getting shortchanged here because of their really bad recent performance. Providence is in the much, much better spot here. So I do like this one to play on Providence here, plus the points. Kind of a generous amount of points here, in my opinion, with 4.5. So I like it. I'm on Providence. It's a sandwich, like I said, for Seton Hall here and coming off a triple overtime game. Providence also has more rest because they haven't played since last Wednesday. Providence did not play on Saturday, I believe that's the case, right? Looks like that is the case. Yeah, they did not play. So the last game was against DePaul last Wednesday, while Seton Hall was involved in that crazy triple overtime battle where they fell just short of Creighton. That might be a bit deflating. That type of game like that takes a little bit out of you. And with Marquette coming up on Saturday, I don't like the spot for Seton Hall. So that's the one play here, being very selective today. The only play I'm going to have is Providence plus 4.5 in this Big East battle. I'll try to get back on the winning side here. Let's go 1-0 tonight, man. Let's get an outright underdog win too. Why not? Come on, let's do it. And that's going to do it for me. I'll probably have an NFL video up at some point. I don't know if I'll do it maybe tonight, tomorrow night, something like that. I know I've been doing it on Thursday nights during the playoffs. There's less to talk about, although I still had an hour-long video to talk about 4 games last week. We're down to 2 games now, so maybe there'll be a little bit less to talk about. Have a good one, man. Happy Wednesday. Hump day. Peace out.